Hello everybody, this is Zach with Top Deck Nation coming at you today with another deck profile video of the XY on standard format. As you might know, the new Breakpoint expansion just came out a couple weeks ago. I'm super excited. Definitely check out Pokemon.com if you're not familiar with it, but it is a very cool set. I definitely recommend buying a booster box, buying some packs, singles, etc. It's a very good set, and I highly recommend checking it out. We looked at Greninja Break, a deck that utilized Greninja Break last week, and very powerful deck using that break to use that giant water shuriken ability. So great deck with non-EX attackers. Can also be very affordable since it doesn't really use Shaman, it uses Octillery. A lot of non-EX decks are kind of continuing that trend, which is pretty cool. But today we're actually looking at yet another playable EX, or a break I should say, definitely not an EX. A break card that's definitely playable, and that's going to be Trevenant BREAK. So just looking at it, it's really cool. It retains the features of the Trevenant before it, but it also gains a few things. So first of all, it's getting more HP, so it's got 160 HP, which is pretty darn good for a non-EX. It's also got that silent fear attack, so for 2 energy it's essentially putting 30 damage on everything, and that's already good for 2 energy. I mean, that's not bad at all for a non-EX, but when paired with Dimension Valley, we basically subtract a colorless energy from the cost, and it's basically hitting for 1 psychic energy. So that is really sick. Being able to hit 30 damage on everything is just really good for 1 energy. And a lot of decks play a lot of these low HP attackers, like Greninja. They have to depend on the Froakies, especially Night March. Nothing really has more than 60 HP in that deck, and that's a huge liability, as you'll see in the video to follow when we play a Night March deck. So really good. And the reason it's so good is because it's inheriting Trevenant's Forest Cursed ability. So as long as Trevenant's your active Pokemon, or the break in this case, your opponent can play any items from his or her hand. So unlike something like Seismitoad EX, which uses Quaking Punch to kind of item lock, this is awesome because it's basically a permanent item lock. Unless your opponent can consistently Lysander around it, or Hex Maniac, or use Garbodor, this is basically a permanent kind of item lock, which is really good. A lot of decks play items. A typical deck will probably play 25, 30 items, maybe 10 supporters or something. So to have half your opponent's deck just shut off immediately as early as turn 1, that is pretty amazing. So I love that about Trevenant. Something else is that the basic is actually really good too. For 1 energy, which would be 0 energy with Dimension Valley, it has Ascension, which lets you evolve into Trevenant as early as turn 1. So that's pretty cool. If you go second, you can attack right away, use Ascension, get your Trevenant, and item lock. If you go first, we can use Wally, which we're playing 2 of here, and that will also immediately evolve your Phantup in the Trevenant. So that's pretty cool. I do wish we could fit maybe 1 more Wally in here, but like I said, this is a base list. Tweak it to your liking, be creative, guys. This is just kind of a foundation for you to start off of. So by no means is this like the end-all be-all Trevenant Aegislash deck. This is just my take on it. Tons of ways to build different decks, and that's why I love this game. So definitely tweak it to your liking. But what makes this deck really interesting, just placing damage counters on everything isn't really enough to win, at least not against something like a Mega Pokemon. It's got 200 plus HP. In that case, we're going to be using Aegislash. So when this first leaked on PokeBeach and other websites and at pre-releases, I looked at Aegislash and I was like, this attack is pretty interesting, this painful sword attack. It doubles the number of damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon. So the Pokemon Company has a tendency to kind of put things in the same set that kind of go together, and also the types kind of work together. So if you kind of put 2 and 2 together, Aegislash can work really well with Trevenant BREAK. Now, it is a Stage 2, and as you might know, I don't like Stage 2s right now. I don't think they're good when you have to rely on rare candy or just kind of sitting there. As much as I like something like Magnezone for that magnetic circuit ability, It's certainly hard to get that out when your opponent's using Quaking Punch or they're hitting with the Lucario and doing 180 as early as turn 1 against something like that. So stage 2s are generally kind of bad, but this isn't really a attacker. This isn't an attacker that's going to be constantly hitting. This is something that just sits on the bench and late game can just sweep and take all prizes. So that's pretty cool. So with Dimension Valley out, we can shave off one of those energies, and it's using the attack for 2 colorless energies. So as you can see, I'm not playing double colorless energy just because I don't really think Trevenant Break needs it. I feel like an attachment or 2 is fine. So basically, I let the Aegislash sit on the bench, attach an energy to it, and then when I know I have the game, I can simply retreat out, attach the second energy, and just take my prizes. So, as long as you play the energy conservatively, we're not just kind of wasting them and putting them everywhere, we should definitely be able to win a lot of games that way. As you can see, though, I am playing the Steel, or the Metal type, I should say, of Honedge and Dual Blade. The reason for that is they have better resistance and weakness. The only fire deck I'm really scared of is Entei, but if you think about it, that's the only fire deck really that's played a lot. It's also got Psychic Resistance, which is great against something like Night March, Mega Mewtwo Y, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some other decks, but that is the big reason we play the Metal types there. So, and you never know, we might just use a false swipe and put damage counters on the opponent's active until they have 10 HP. You never know. That would actually kind of pair up with Trevenant Break, I guess. So that is why we play that. And of course we play 2 Shaman. Everybody's best friend, right? Shaman lets you draw some cards, and it's such a great card. Despite being an EX with 110 HP, everybody plays it because it's good. Without having to waste the supporter, I'm drawing up to 6 cards, so very good. As far as supporters go, we're playing 4 Professor Sycamore, so it's a very vanilla card, discard hand, and draw 7 cards, so definitely the best supporter in the format. We play 2 Wally. Again, if I had to choose a 61st card, I would definitely go for a 3rd Wally because it's so important to evolve that Phantom as early as turn 1. Wally also combos well with the Aegislash, being able to get that late game if you run out of things like Ultra Ball. It gives you more outs. We play 1 Xerosic because a lot of people play tool cards. I mean, if you think about it, the average deck is probably playing like 5 or 6 tool cards. We play in Eviltal's Zoroark Gallade, we see something like 2 or 3 Muscle Bands, 2 Floatstone. So this is a great card. If you item lock your opponent, you can really disrupt them that way, especially against something like a Mega Pokemon that relies on a Spirit Link. It's going to force your opponent to either choose to attack with the basic or to Mega Evolve and basically not attack. So that's really good. We are playing 1 AZ. This is really good for some shenanigans where you can basically AZ 1 Trevenant Break, bring up a Trevenant, and evolve with the break that you just put in your hand. So that's pretty good. That's going to let you heal that damage off, kind of like a max potion. It's kind of resetting the board. So that's pretty good. It also lets you retreat out, essentially, if we prize Floatstones or run out of them. And then lastly, we are playing 1 Lysander. We don't really have to have Lysander here just because we're already putting damage counters on everything. But under item lock, it becomes really hard for something like Bronzong or anything else with a 3 or a 4 retreat cost to retreat out consistently. So that's pretty good. We can lock our opponent in that way. So as far as our items go, we're playing 2 Battle Compressor. Really good to get 1 of supporters out and just to kind of thin your deck out late game. We're playing a Max Potion because it's a great 1-of tech to heal your Trevenant off. We're only hitting for a single energy, so we can definitely pair that up and disrupt our opponent that way, make them take an extra turn or 2 to knock us out. We play Sacred Ash just because we are playing a pretty thick line of Pokemon. We play 19 Pokemon, we're playing a Stage 2 line, we're playing a Break, so it's really important that we get those Pokemon back. We play 4 Trainer's Mail to kind of add to that consistency and draw into what we have. As you can see, we're playing 33 trainers, so over half our deck are trainer cards. So definitely good to have some support there, consistency. Consistency is key, guys, with any kind of deck. I love putting in techs and things like that for certain matchups, but in the end, you need consistency to be able to draw your cards efficiently. So that is why we play Trainer's Mail. And then of course 4 Ultra Ball, pretty standard. Most decks let you search out any Pokemon, so that's pretty cool. So we play 4 VS Seeker, lets us reuse supporters. That's again for consistency. And then the last item is Floatstone, which is really important in this deck. If we start with Shaman, if we start with Honedge, that's not good. We want to use Trainer's Mail, Shaman, things like that, to draw through our cards, get the float stone, retreat out, and hopefully either use Ascension or use Wally. So that is why we play float stone. So that is pretty much the list. We're just playing 8 Psychic Energy. You can certainly try to fit in a couple DCE if you want to do it that way. It might make Trevenant's Tree Slam a little better or a little easier to use, but I think this is really consistent. I have tested it, and I think it's great. Like I said, you can let Aegislash sit on the bench and just slowly build it up, and then of course Trevenant Break is attacking for 1 energy, so we don't have to play a lot of energy. But that is the deck, guys, so let's go ahead and jump into a game I recently played, actually 2 games today, on Pokemon Trading Card Game Online, and let's see how competitive this deck is. Alright guys, looks like we are up against Mr. Spoon of Doom. That's a pretty awesome name. We're just flipping that Froakie coin. We're going to see who goes first here. It's pretty important that we go first, but if we don't, we can still use Ascension and get that Trevenant. Looks like we lost the coin flip, so our opponent's going to go first. Always important to do that so you can get set up. So it looks like we mulliganed, but it looks like our opponent did as well. I see Metal Energies, I see DCE, so this could be like a Lugia Metal deck. I'm not really sure. And oh no, looks like we mulligan again. That's a pretty awful looking hand. So let's go ahead and shuffle our hand back in and hopefully get a basic. Hopefully start with the Fan Thump. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll shuffle it back in. And I have no idea what this deck is right now, so we're going to have to hopefully adapt to it, hopefully see what it is. And oh my gosh, we start with a Shaman. So right off the bat, this is already a kind of bad start here. I don't really like where this is going. So I see a Honedge, so it's possible maybe this could be a Trevenant deck, I don't know. Or it could be like a Metal deck. I did see Metal Energy, so we're just trying to see what it is. I see a Rayquaza come down, so it's possible this could be like a Mega Rayquaza Metal deck, although I don't know what the Aegislash is there for. Eventually it will evolve into Aegislash. I mean, maybe it's there to give Rayquaza no weakness. I mean, I don't know. So I'm going to immediately try to thin my handout here. I'm thinking maybe if I can get a Trevenant or a Phanthump and another Shaman out, maybe this could work. I mean, I'm not sure. I think I'm going to have to get the Shaman so that way I can draw enough cards to go ahead and get the Phanthump as well. So I'm really trying to go for like a turn 1 Wally here. Not really sure if I'll get it, but who knows. And I will go ahead and put down Phanthump, attach, and at this point we're in pretty good shape. I can go ahead and Ultra Ball. And yeah, the Shaman should be in there. I thought I saw it. Well, I think, yeah, Shaman's already down. I'm sorry. So we'll go ahead and get something else here. We're going to get Phanthump. And honestly, I think we're just going to have to Sycamore. So we kind of missed the Wally. But we did get a Float Stone. And that is going to let us go ahead and use Ascension for that item lock. I'll go ahead and put down Honedge as well just to kind of build it up. Let's free retreat out with the Float Stone, and we'll use Ascension. So there, on our first turn, we were able to get Trevenant out. And there we go. So our opponent cannot play item cards, and this is going to be huge. So if they have a lot of items, and they have an 8-card hand right now, that's going to hurt a lot. So let's see what happens here. And oh man, we see a Team Flare Grunt right off the bat, and that's going to knock off an energy. Oh no, we see a False Swipe, and ooh, thankfully it's a Tails. Had that been a heads, it would have been 100 damage, and that would have been horrible because I do see a Pineco, which means Fortress could easily come down and knock out my Trevenant. We do not want that, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and Battle Compressor. Like I said, I usually Battle Compressor for the 1-up supporters, so let's go ahead and do that. I'll get a Wally just in case, and then maybe Judge, so that'll be good. So at this point, I can go ahead and put a Float Stone down, and I'm just wondering, what should I do? Should I use a Sycamore? I think I have to just to get the Psychic Energy. And there you go. We get Trevenant Breakout as our second turn. We get the energy on it. We've got Dimension Valley. So we're going to be doing 30 to everything. And I'll just go ahead and do that. I don't really see a point in using Trainer's Mail quite yet because I think we have everything we need. And it looks like it's our opponent's turn again. So he's wondering what to do here. He is item locked, and I'm guessing at least half his hand is probably item cards. Now, he has used a Team Flare Grunt, which makes me worry if he has another one, but he's actually going to opt to Lysander a Phanthump, so I don't mind this. I've got another Phanthump in my hand. I can easily put it down. but he's slowly powering up this Aegislash here, which is a dual blade right now. So I'm just curious, which Aegislash is he playing? I don't even really know. It's kind of scary. So at this point, Aegislash does come down, and it looks like it's the one with Miracle Guard. I believe it's that's what it's called. So it means that he's not really going to have any weakness on his Pokemon. But in this case, that doesn't really matter. I don't really have fire or lightning types, so shouldn't really matter. But I will go ahead and put down Phanthump, and we're going to have to figure out a plan here. Hone Edge has a Float Stone, so I'm not really worried about that. I'm going to go ahead and Trainer's Mail, and I'm thinking about what should I play here. Should I get the Ultra Ball and try to get another Trevenant out, or should I Max Potion? And that way, if I do get hit, I can easily take that damage off. So it's a very tough choice here. It really depends if I think I can draw into an energy next turn, if I do have to Max Potion. But I think that's the safer play. Um, Otherwise, Aegislash is hitting for, I think, 80 damage, so in a couple turns I could get knocked out otherwise. So I'll go ahead and do that. And there we go. As you can see, I've already taken a knockout because something was on the bench with 60 HP. 50 or 60, I'm not sure. But, that just kind of tells you how good this deck is. Once it gets going, if your opponent has any low HP Pokemon, they are essentially a liability. They're as bad as having like a Shaman on their bench. So very good for us, and our opponent's going to have to take down several of these Trevenants to end up winning the game. Now, keep in mind, we did have to discard Sacred Ash early on, I'm pretty sure, so that is something to keep note of, so we'll have to be pretty conservative with everything, but otherwise I think we're doing okay. So I can go ahead and evolve Trevenant, and that's fine. So at this point, I'm wondering what to do. Can I Max Potion this Trevenant? I'm not really sure what to do here. I think the safest play is to probably heal Trevenant because I have a lot of energy still in the deck. So I guess I'll go ahead and Sycamore. It's kind of risky, but I should be okay. And there we go. I draw into 3 energies, so that's pretty good. And I can go ahead and Silent Fear. And the great thing is that next turn I can go ahead and get another Trevenant breakout. So we're in fantastic shape right here. As you can see, we're slowly damaging our opponent. Eventually, once they have enough damage, I can bring up Aegislash or just continue to just kind of take all prizes with Trevenant. So we're in good shape right now. My opponent has taken a prize, but so have we. And I think we're in pretty good shape, so we're just going to have to see what our opponent does. He's kind of thinking it out, which is fine. Definitely nothing wrong with that. And oh no, we see a Pokemon Center lady come down, and that's horrible for us because that takes away essentially 2 of our Silent Fear attacks. So let's go ahead and get another Trevenant out. And at this point, like I was kind of mentioning when I was showing off the deck before, this might be a good time to play the AZ. Essentially, AZ can kind of reset my board. And in this particular case, when I've already got a Phantump on board, it essentially lets me go ahead and evolve that into a Trevenant and lets me go ahead and put down the 3rd Phantump again. So this is a nice little combo, and that is kind of why I like AZ. It's also great if you prize Float Stones, if your opponent Megaphones them or 0-6 them. So I do like the one of AZ. It's very convenient. So at this point, I AZ, and I'm going to go ahead and Silent Fear. So we're definitely putting the fear into my opponent, hopefully. Maybe not so much, I don't know. He seems to be pretty set up here, so I'm sure he's not too scared right now. Especially if he plays more of those Flare Grunts and Pokemon Center ladies. Those could definitely mess me up. But I think we're doing okay here. He uses another Protect Charge, so if this had been attack damage instead of damage counters, I would be in a lot of trouble because not only is he resistant to Psychic, but also that Protect Charge is going to reduce damage as well. So at this point, I'm just wondering, what do I need to do? I'm down to, it looks like 9 cards in my deck. My opponent has, it looks like 24 or 34. So basically a lot of cards here. So I don't really know what to do, but I am going to go ahead and evolve into Dual Blade because I think Aegislash could be the key to winning this game, possibly. Hard to say for sure, but it might be. So I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, I'm down to just, looks like 8 or 9 cards in my deck. So I'm going to go ahead and Silent Fear. I have to be really conservative. If I play Professor Sycamore, I'm probably going to lose. So I have to play this really conservatively so I can actually have a chance at winning here. Because otherwise, my opponent has 7 energy on the board, so he's certainly not afraid to take knockouts. And once Dialga comes out, he's going to be hitting for a ton of damage. If he has a Muscle Band, he's practically going to be knocking out Trevenant Breaks every turn. So at this point, I'm going to have to VS Seeker for the Sycamore. I believe Aegislash and the energy are in there. Let's go ahead and do it. There's Aegislash and there's the energy. So I think I'll be able to do this. It looks like everything has enough damage on the board. So let's go ahead and Painful Sword. And there we go. Double the damage counters. Look at that. It did 330 damage total. And we're taking 5 prizes in one turn. Oh my gosh. So my opponent had 7 energy on the board, but it didn't matter because Aegislash was able to come in and save the day. So that is why I love Aegislash in this deck. Trevenant's a great attacker on its own, but I love, love, love Aegislash. So let's go ahead and jump into another game I played online, and let's just check it out and go from there, guys. Alright guys, looks like we're going against Andre 666 Evil, okay. Interesting nickname there, but we're going to go ahead and flip. Looks like we actually won the coin flip in this game, so that's going to be pretty awesome. We will go first because we can potentially get that turn 1 Wally and get set up very quickly. Now, I do start off with a Fan Thump. This is pretty cool. That means I'm going to be able to potentially get it off. I will need a Wally, but I do have an Ultra Ball, so I can attach an energy. I can Ultra Ball for Shaman and hopefully get that. So hopefully the luck is on our side. So let's see. And oh, it looks like we're playing against a Night March deck. So I think we have a pretty good advantage here, hopefully. It depends how set up they can get. If we don't get the Wally, they could certainly battle compress and have enough Night Marchers to knock us out. But hopefully we'll be okay. If we can get that Wally, we'll be in good shape. So let's see what happens here, guys. It looks like, oh my gosh, he had a great start here. He's got 3 unknown, he's got a Pumpkaboo, and it looks like it's a Combee. So he's not going to be as dependent on those Night March Pokemon. He can actually hit for a lot just with the Vespiquen. So we'll have to be mindful of that, but I will Ultra Ball a couple cards. And let's see what we have here. I do see a Shaman. It looks like both of them are in there, so that's great. And I'm going to Shaman for 3 and hopefully get a Wally. Oh my gosh, this is close, and oh, we don't get it. So I'm going to have to Ultra Ball again, and I'm going to go for the Wally if I can. I'm going to have to go for a Shaman here and hopefully draw into a Wally. This is very risky, it really is, but I think it's really important for this matchup to go ahead and get that. So let's see what happens, and oh my gosh, looks like we whiffed it again. So maybe that third Wally is needed in here, I don't know, but like I said, the list is very tight, but oh my gosh, there's the Wally. There he is. So Wally, he kind of let us down. So, okay. So I think we're gonna have to pass here. I don't know. I don't want to get that Fan Thump knocked out though. So I think what I'm going to do is actually retreat into the Hone Edge, and that way next turn I can just retreat out. If it gets knocked out, that's fine. I can Sacred Ash it back in. I've got a second one. So our opponent is going to have one turn here to really get set up. So if they get really set up, we're going to be in some trouble. The more Pokemon in the discard, the more Vespiquen does. So that Vengeance attack is very, very powerful. So yeah, that is how this is going to go if he manages to get set up. Question is, what does our opponent have in his hand or her hand? I see a Fighting Fury Belt. That's going to make things a little bit tougher because instead of 2 Silent Fear attacks, which will do 60 damage, we would have to do 4 on the Pumpkaboo. So that is going to be very hard to pull off. So let's just kind of think about that while we're playing here. So I see an energy come down, but thankfully it's not a double colorless. And it looks like our opponent probably isn't playing Forest of Giant Plants since they played a Professor Sycamore, so we will have one more turn to pull this off. So this could definitely work in our favor. So next turn we could actually evolve in a Trevenant and hopefully Wally into a break and go ahead and start putting pressure on our opponent. That's also going to knock out a Joltik immediately as well. So this could be in our favor here. Let's see what we get, and we get another Wally. So let's, I believe we can go ahead and do this combo here. I'm going to go ahead and drop down the Wally. Let's get the break. Let's see what's prized. So looks like one of the breaks might be prized. So we'll have to be extra careful with that. We don't want to have to get a couple of those knocked out and just kind of lose that way. But I will go ahead and retreat out into the Trevenant Break and use Silent Fear. So if our opponent doesn't have anything next turn, we're going to be taking a lot of prizes. We already take one from that, so we get another Ultra Ball. I would personally like to see another supporter. You know, Wally's great, but I need to keep drawing cards just in case Trevenant gets knocked out. So let's see what happens here. They are item locked. Keep that in mind. So no battle compressors, no verse seekers, not a lot of anything, to be honest. So this is a really good matchup, in my opinion, against Night March. But then again, it does come down to who can get set up first. So let's see what happens. Our opponent uses Professor Sycamore, gets a fresh hand of 7 cards. So they have to make a decision. Do they want to go ahead and try attacking with this Vespiquen, putting 3 energy on it, which is probably not the best idea in the world, not very efficient. And they're actually going to go for the Intelligence Gathering. So he's just kind of putting a little bit of damage on the board. I'm going to go ahead and evolve into Honedge. And then I guess I'll use Wally. I mean, I don't really have another option, I guess. So I'll go ahead and evolve into Trevenant just to have another one as a backup, and I'm just going to hold on to the Trevenant Break in my hand so I can evolve next turn. So we use another Silent Fear, and down goes another Pumpkaboo, and we get a Dimension Valley, which, you know, we can actually discard that Dimension Valley here because our opponent also depends on Dimension Valley with Pumpkaboo. So we can definitely discard that. I wish there was another draw card here, like a Shaman or something. That would be awesome. But we played a little riskier first turn, but I think it paid off. We got set up pretty quickly. We drew through a ton of cards here, so I think we're okay. But, you know, if you look up in the corner, our opponent's actually drawn a lot more cards than we have, and I think that's because, you know, these Night March decks are just very, very fast. And he uses a Vengeance, but oh my gosh, because Trevenant's a little bulkier than the Stage 1 Trevenant, we were able to survive that attack, so it doesn't do enough damage, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and use Silent Fear, and it's going to put 30 more damage on the board. And there goes Vespiquen. Vespiquen is going down. We get a Phanthump as our prize, but that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for a supporter, because I don't want to get trapped here. I don't want to see Trevenant Break knocked out, and we don't have energy to attack. So we're just going to have to see what happens here. You know, if we had another energy, you know, we could potentially knock out Joltik and Combee. He's going to go ahead and probably go for the Night March. He will get the knockout. And I'm going to go ahead and promote Dual-Blade, since that is a float stone, so it is free retreat. But we need a supporter really, really bad. I don't like this at all. Now, as you can see in his prizes, he has a lot of Night Marchers, so we can take that and use it to our advantage, so that way I'm pretty sure he can't actually knock me out in one blow. So that is something to keep note of. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, it looks like 6 Night Marchers in the discard, so counting the Fury Belt, he's hitting for 130, so he actually has to get rid of 2 more Night Marchers to knock me out. But if he does, that's really risky, because if he runs out of Night Marchers, he practically loses the game, because you know, he needs more attackers on the bench, otherwise he will lose. So he's probably weighing in his options, and I'm just going to retreat out into Trevenant Break and pass, I believe. So I'm going to let Trevenant take a hit, and then hopefully we can respond back with a Silent Fear and get a couple more knockouts. Very hard to say, but I do think the item lock is working. My opponent is down to less than 10 cards now, and like I said, Night March is a very, very fast deck, but it's not really in favor of my opponent right now. I'm sure he doesn't want to have to discard his hand, but I think that might be the only option to take out to get a knockout. So I'm still just kind of struggling here. I'm going to go ahead and Ultra Ball. I guess at this point, just go ahead and get, let's see, we could either go for the Trevenant or we can go for the Aegislash. So I'm going to go for the Trevenant. You know, I don't think we have to have Aegislash in this matchup. I think Trevenant is the more efficient attacker, so I will go ahead and pass here. So this is really kind of disappointing. I want to be able to knock out my opponent here, because we're so close to winning the game. I think if we had one more energy and a Trevenant Break, we would actually win the game here. So we really need to get that off, but it's so hard to. We see a Night March, and oh my gosh, one of the other break is going to be knocked out. So we'll need a Sacred Ash just to get it back. I don't know what to promote. Probably the Hone Edge, but if I can't draw anything, the Trevenants are going to have to be sacrificed to keep that item lock. But finally, we get a Professor Sycamore, and that is going to be awesome. I'm wondering if Sacred Ash is in the deck because I need to get that out as soon as possible to get the Trevenant Break. So I will Battle Compressor, and there it is. First card is the Sacred Ash, so very good. So I'm thinking here if I can discard a few cards with Battle Compressor, maybe I can Trainer's Mail and draw into it. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll take some cards we don't need. Yeah, we can just get rid of probably the Dual Blade or the Hone Edge. Don't really need those right now. So yeah, I'll go ahead and do that, and I'm going to go ahead and Trainer's Mail just to see what happens. We're hoping for the Sacred Ash, and there we go, we get Sacred Ash. So I will go ahead and do that to get back the Trevenant Breaks. And that will potentially open up the door for us to win next turn, I want to say, because I can VS Seeker for the Wally and then simply retreat out and just take 3 prizes for the knockout or for the game. So hopefully I won't get judged. Hopefully we won't see some kind of other shenanigan. I don't really know what he's going to play, so let's see what happens here. A Hex Maniac would definitely hurt because it would shut off the item lock and let my opponent have a big turn full of items, and that's what we do not want. So let's see what he does. If he chooses to Night March, I think we pretty much have the game. Like I said, Trevenant's Forest Cursed ability has played a huge role in this game. It's item locked right from the start, and it's kind of hindered our opponent from playing 30 plus items in their deck. So this is why item lock is such a good strategy. But to have permanent item lock in a non-EX deck where your opponent has to take 6 prizes, that is pretty awesome, and that is why I like this deck. So let's see what happens. And he's going to go for the Night March, so I think we win. I'm pretty sure. I think we have a Wally in the discard that we Battle Compressed earlier, I want to say, or discarded earlier. So I promote Dual Blade, and let's see what we get here. We get a Trevenant, but I do have the Wally, I think. So I'm looking in there, and there we go. 2 Wally are in there. So at this point, I'm just kind of thinking about my options, but I'm pretty sure I can just Wally for the break to win the game here. So that is huge. So I will go ahead and play Wally, get the Trevenant Break. Dimension Valley is out, so I'll be hitting for a single energy, very efficient. And Silent Fear, I believe, will take the knockout here. So here we go, Silent Fear. And there we go, 30 to everything, and we just took 3 prizes against Night March. So, oh my gosh, there's a Max Potion, a Xerosic, and a Trainer's Mail, and we were able to win the game, guys. That is a huge win. Night March is a very fast, very powerful deck, but that item lock clearly slowed it down in its tracks. We were able to get set up a little quicker, and because Trevenant is so bulky, we were able to survive a couple hits apiece. The item lock is such a huge factor against this kind of matchup, and I think that's why we were able to win ultimately. So that is Trevenant Break Aegislash. Very awesome deck. It is going to kind of struggle against dark decks because Yveltal is still a thing, but otherwise it's a very good deck. I recommend playing it. Like I said, use my list as a base or a foundation if you want to, but definitely be creative, tweak it to your liking. My deck is not the end-all be-all, but just kind of a start to kind of get your creative juices flowing. So, yeah. This has been Top Deck Nation with a deck profile video for Trevenant Break Aegislash. Be sure to like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.